In a gripping turn of events, Nnedi, the sickly daughter once overshadowed by her father's obsession with his male heir, finds herself facing an unexpected moment of destiny that will test her strength and courage like never before. As the village falls into turmoil, Nnedi must rise beyond her illness to protect her people and prove her worth, all while her brother, Ikenna, watches from the sidelines, torn between pride and guilt. The tension reaches its peak when Nnedi confronts her father in a heartfelt battle of wills, shaking the very foundation of their family's legacy. Will Nnedi be able to overcome the odds and heal the divide within her family, or will the pressure of tradition break her spirit? The sun hung high over the small village of Daba, casting long shadows over the dusty roads that wove between huts with thatched roofs. The village was quiet except for the occasional laughter of children playing near the river and the rhythmic clanging of a blacksmith's hammer. But inside one particular compound, all was not well. Papa Nnadi, the head of the household, sat proudly in the center of the courtyard, his chest puffed out like a rooster. His son, Ikenna, sat beside him, holding a wooden staff carved with the patterns of their ancestors. Everyone knew Ikenna was Papa Nnadi's pride and joy, the future of the family, the heir to everything his father owned. In the corner of the courtyard, slumped against the wall, was Nnedi, Papa Nnadi's daughter. She was weak, her face pale from the illness that had gripped her for weeks. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her frail body shivered under a thin blanket. Her large, sad eyes watched her father and brother, but Papa Nnadi barely glanced in her direction. "Father, may I have some water?" Nnedi's voice was barely more than a whisper, but Papa Nnadi didn't even look at her. Instead, he laughed heartily at something Ikenna had said and continued to talk about plans for his son's future. Nnedi's heart ached. She had always known her father favored Ikenna. But as her sickness worsened, the distance between her and her father grew wider. Ikenna, strong and healthy, received all the attention. Nnedi, who used to run through the fields with her brother, now barely had the strength to lift her hand. She missed the days when her father would carry her on his back, telling her stories of great warriors and queens. But those days were long gone. "Father, please," she tried again, but her voice cracked, and tears filled her eyes. She was invisible, a shadow in her father's eyes. Mama Adis, her stepmother, entered the courtyard, carrying a pot of food. She glanced at Nnedi, then at Papa Nnadi, and shook her head. "Nnedi, why are you always whining?" Mama Adis said sharply. "You're not the only one who needs help. Look at your brother. He has responsibilities. You just lie there, useless." Nnedi closed her eyes, her chest tightening with pain, not from her illness, but from the words that cut deep into her heart. She had heard this many times before. She was a burden. She was weak. She was not worth her father's love. But deep inside, Nnedi refused to give up. Even as her body weakened, her spirit stayed strong. She dreamed of a day when her father would look at her the way he looked at Ikenna, with pride and love. That hope kept her alive, even when the illness seemed like it would win. Days passed, and Nnedi's health worsened. Her once beautiful brown skin grew dull, her hands shaky. She struggled to keep her food down, and sleep became a luxury. Yet, each time she asked for help, her father looked away. Even when the village healer came to visit, Papa Nnadi barely acknowledged her illness. He paid for expensive herbs and treatments for Ikenna, ensuring his son stayed strong. But Nnedi received nothing. "Father, why?" Nnedi asked one night when they were alone in the courtyard. "Why do you love Ikenna more than me?" Papa Nnadi looked at her for a moment, his face unreadable. Then he stood up and walked away without a word. That night, Nnedi cried herself to sleep. But her dreams were filled with visions, strange, magical visions. In her dream, she saw a tall, ancient tree standing in the middle of a vast field. The tree's bark shimmered in the moonlight, and its leaves whispered secrets. At the base of the tree, a glowing figure appeared, a woman with skin like the night sky and eyes like the stars. She reached out her hand to Nnedi. "Do not give up, child," the woman said. "Your strength is greater than you know." When Nnedi woke, her body was still weak, but something had changed. There was a spark inside her, a determination that had not been there before. She would find that tree. She would seek the woman in her dreams. The next day, Nnedi gathered her strength and, with shaky legs, began to walk. She stumbled through the village, past curious onlookers who wondered why the sick girl was wandering alone. She didn't stop. Her feet moved as if they knew where they were going. She followed the path from her dream, up the hill, through the thick bushes, until she reached the field. And there it was, the tree. It stood tall, just like in her dream. The moonlight made its bark glow, and the wind carried whispers from its leaves. Nnedi collapsed at its base, exhausted but determined. As she touched the tree's trunk, she felt a rush of warmth fill her body. Her pain eased, and for the first time in weeks, she felt strong. The woman from her dream appeared again, her voice soft and soothing. "You are not weak, Nnedi. You are not invisible. You have a power inside you that no one can take away." With each passing day, Nnedi returned to the tree. It became her sanctuary, a place where she could heal not just her body, but her heart. And slowly, her strength returned. But while Nnedi was healing, things in her father's house grew worse. Ikenna, proud and confident, began to grow arrogant. He ignored his father's lessons, dismissing the elders who came to teach him the ways of the village. He spent more time boasting to his friends than learning. Soon, Papa Nnadi began to worry. "Ikenna, my son, you must take this seriously," Papa Nnadi warned. But Ikenna laughed. "Father, you worry too much. I am strong. I am the heir. The village will respect me." But trouble was brewing in the village. The neighboring tribe, jealous of Daba's prosperity, began to make threats. War was on the horizon. And Ikenna, unprepared and overconfident, was not ready to lead. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a messenger arrived with grim news. The neighboring tribe had gathered its warriors and was ready to attack. The village was in chaos. People ran to prepare, but fear hung in the air like a thick fog. Papa Nnadi, desperate, called for Ikenna. "Now is your time, my son. You must lead us." But Ikenna hesitated. The confidence he had worn like armor began to crack. He had not trained as he should have. He was not ready for this. I can't, father." Those words broke Papa Nnadi's heart. His son, the heir he had placed all his hopes in, was not the leader he had believed him to be. Just as panic began to spread, Nnedi appeared at the edge of the village, her body glowing with an inner strength no one had seen before. "I will lead." The village fell silent. The sick girl, the daughter Papa Nnadi had ignored, now stood tall and strong, her eyes filled with determination. Nnedi led the village warriors into battle. She had no fear. Her time spent with the ancient tree had given her wisdom and strength beyond her years. Under her leadership, the village fought bravely, and they emerged victorious. When she returned, the villagers cheered for her. Papa Nnadi, humbled and filled with regret, fell to his knees before his daughter. "I was wrong, Nnedi. I see now how strong you are. Forgive me, my child." Nnedi smiled softly. "I forgive you, father. But remember, strength comes from the heart, not from the body." From that day on, Nnedi was not just Papa Nndi's daughter. She became the true leader of the village. She had proven that strength was not something given, but something earned. Her illness had not made her weak, it had forged her into something greater. Papa Nnadi no longer favored Ikenna over her, for he had learned a valuable lesson. Love and respect were not based on gender or physical ability, but on character and resilience. As the village celebrated their victory, Papa Nnadi made a public declaration. He stood in the center of the village square, where a crowd had gathered to honor Nnedi. I was blind, he began, his voice heavy with emotion. I thought that only a son could lead and protect our people. But my daughter, Nnedi, has shown me the true meaning of strength and wisdom. She is the heart of this family, the soul of this village. From this day forward, I will honor her as my equal, as my leader. The villagers erupted into cheers. They had seen with their own eyes the courage Nnedi possessed, and they respected her even more for overcoming the challenges she had faced. Ikenna, who had always been the center of attention, stepped forward. His pride had been shaken, but his heart was not filled with jealousy. Instead, he knelt before Nnedi, offering her the carved wooden staff that had once been his. "You deserve this more than I do, sister," he said quietly, his voice full of admiration. "I was wrong to think that I was the only one worthy of carrying this. You have shown us all what true leadership looks like." Nnedi smiled warmly and accepted the staff, but she gently placed it back in Ikenna's hands. "We will share this responsibility, brother. Together, we will make this village stronger. I don't need to lead alone. We are family, and family stands united." As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Nnedi continued to lead the village with wisdom and compassion. She spent her mornings at the ancient tree, seeking guidance and strength, and her afternoons with the villagers, listening to their concerns and helping where she could. Ikenna, no longer burdened by the pressure of being the sole heir, found peace in working alongside his sister. Together, they made decisions that benefited everyone, not just a few. Papa Nnadi, now an older and wiser man, watched his children with pride. He no longer saw Ikenna as the only hope for the family. Instead, he saw the power of unity and the beauty of shared leadership. Nnedi's once fragile body had healed, and her spirit had become unbreakable. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon and the sky turned a deep shade of orange, Nnedi sat beneath the ancient tree once more. She closed her eyes and listened to the whispers of the wind, the rustling of the leaves, and the soft hum of life all around her. The woman from her dreams appeared again, but this time, her face was more familiar, like a mother or an ancestor. She smiled at Nnedi, her eyes filled with pride. "You have done well, Nnedi," the woman said, her voice like the softest breeze. "Your strength has healed more than just your body. You have healed your family, your village, and yourself. Remember, child, that your heart will always guide you. Trust in it, and you will never be lost." Nnedi opened her eyes, feeling a sense of peace she had never known before. She stood, her heart full, and made her way back to the village, where her family and her people waited for her. From that day on, the village of Daba became known not for its wealth or its warriors, but for its wise and compassionate leaders. Nnedi and Ikenna ruled together, bringing peace and prosperity to their people. And whenever a challenge arose, Nnedi would return to the ancient tree, knowing that the strength she needed had been within her all along. As the years passed, the story of Nnedi's triumph over sickness, neglect, and doubt spread far and wide. People from other villages came to seek her counsel, drawn by the tales of the girl who had once been overlooked but had risen to become a great leader. And in every story they told, the message was the same: true strength comes not from the body, but from the heart. Nnedi's story became a legend, passed down from generation to generation, a reminder that even in the darkest times, hope, love, and inner strength could shine brighter than anything else. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another story filled with suspense, heart, and inspiration. Leave a comment below and tell us, what would you do if you were in Nnedi's shoes? Stay tuned for more captivating stories.